All right, we have the reigning WSL Junior Champion, which guaranteed his spot on the Challenger Series, which starts with the Boost Mobile Pro Gold Coast presented by GWM, which has likely started by the time this episode airs. He was a recent injury replacement on the 2023 Margaret River Pro Championship Tour event, where he mixed it up with the world's best surfers. And frankly, he is an Australian young gun who has been on a meteoric rise in recent years. We have Cronulla's Jarvis Earle. Jarvis, thanks so much for joining us on the lineup today.
Yeah, hey guys. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. I'm keen to talk about some surf stuff. So yeah, let's get into it.
Right on. So where are you calling from today? I'd imagine that you are probably on the Gold Coast prepping for the upcoming event.
Yeah, I'm actually from Cronulla in Sydney, but I'm on the Gold Coast at the moment, surfing snapper a lot, and yeah, the waves have been really good, and the bank's so fun. So hopefully get some swell for the comp.
I've heard ton of surf over the last few days, and probably anyone in surfing has seen an abundance of footage and photos. It looks like the Superbank's been even more crowded than usual. How have you personally found it out there trying to prep for the event with just a huge amount of surfers, both the locals who are such good surfers already, and then all the Challenger Series surfers coming into town?
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty tricky one. Like, Snapper's already so crowded as it is, and having the Challenger Series is like the best surfers from all around the world battling for waves. But you get a little break and get lucky, and you definitely get a few waves. So I've been like scoring the last few days. It's been pretty epic.
For sure. Now, you mentioned that you're from Cronulla. We're definitely going to dig into that in the upcoming segment. But let's start with where you were just a couple weeks ago, which was the Western Australia Margaret River Pro, the Championship Tour event. Did you get to go home in between heading to the Gold Coast, or was it straight from West Oz to the Goldie?
Yeah, I got a few days at home just to like settle in and get a little bit of training done, but it was all pretty rushed. Like, I only got the call up from Margs like 5 days before the event started, and I was sorting out boards, and like it was all rushed. And yeah, I got to surf in my first CT event, so it was pretty sick to get that experience like before my first Challenger event. But yeah, I'm grateful for that opportunity, and yeah, back to Snapper, get some training done before the comp.
For sure. And you mentioned you only found out about competing in Margaret River 5 days before the event. What was it like when you got the call up? You know, what were your emotions, and you know, how did you think it went for you just competing against the CT surfers out there?
Yeah. Renato, who from the WSL, called me up, and I like couldn't believe him. I like had to double check with him to make sure it was true. And yeah, I got the wild card like a few days before, quickly sorted out boards. But yeah, it was definitely just a whole different experience coming from like doing the regional QS and jumping straight up into the CT, and it was like a good experience to get practice against the best surfers in the world before I come back on the Challenger Series for my first year at that.
For sure. Now, obviously, you know, West Oz is it's a radically different setup than Snapper Rocks is, and so on the one hand, going out there and competing against the CT surfers could potentially kind of disrupt your preparation. If you've got a few weeks leading up to Snapper, you're like, I'm going to surf as many little beach break right-handers or point break right-handers as I can get to. I'm going to work on my high performance boards. So you have this disruption of going out and surfing the Championship Tour event, but then on the other hand, you're having to lift your level to not only compete against, but beat some of the best surfers on the planet, which is obviously the level that all the Challenger surfers, series surfers want to get to. So how did you kind of weigh that out in your head in terms of preparation for ultimately where you want to end up?
Yeah, well, the CT is obviously where I ultimately want to end up. So when that opportunity arose, I definitely grabbed it with both hands. But I've had a lot of practice out Snapper, obviously being from Australia, and it's just like an hour flight from home. So whenever there's a swell, I try to get up there and surf Snapper and get practice in and get a few runarounds. But yeah, so I definitely just took the opportunity to surf in the CT level, saying that's where I want to be in the long term. And I think like a wave like Marg uses kind of the waves that I need more practice in, especially when I'm probably weighing like 20 kilos less than all of the other CT surfers. So it was really good experience, and yeah, it was definitely worth it, disrupting my training for the challenge series to get some reps in over at main break and get to surf against the best surfers in the world and just get to know what the level's like once you reach that stage.
For sure. And, you mentioned that you're a little bit lighter than some of the CT surfers you competed against. And I've had the pleasure of, at least tracking your career the last couple of years through the folks at Channel Islands and YouTube and social media and stuff. And I knew you were a young guy, but in getting prepared for this podcast, I'm like, I'm going to throw on some like YouTube clips. And it's like, oh, this one's from 2 years ago. This one's from 1 year ago. And I'm watching it and I'm looking at it and I'm going, man, and he's little. Like, I'm like, how old is this kid? Now, you're only 18, man. Like, you've had a crazy run in the last couple of years. And it is really interesting, right? Because you have so many weapons as a surfer already. But we see this on the men's side and the women's side. Going from that QS, CS level to the CT level, there's a huge kind of physical maturity component to people surfing. Would you agree with that? And is that something you kind of noticed coming up against the CT surfers?
Yeah, I definitely noticed it. Like, I've just been getting a lot into my gym training and stuff the last year or so, but I think I'll just slowly put on size of that age and like mature. But the guys on tour are definitely like so fit and strong, and like when they have a lot of weight of you, it's hard to come up against them in those bigger waves when they're throwing so much spray. But yeah, I think just a bit more training and it will come with time. I'll put on a bit more weight and come back stronger for hopefully my next CT appearance.
For sure. And I mean, we should mention the run you had out there. First round, you're surfing against, Jackson Baker and Ethan Ewing, probably two surfers, both of them coming from Australia that you're really familiar with. Then you move into the elimination round. You have Callum Robson and Michael Rodriguez. Not all great surfers make it to the CT. And even once they're there, a lot of them don't even make it through heats. You've already made it through a heat. You made it through the elimination round and then moved into the round of 32 where you came up against the current world number one, Zhao Xianka. So you already have a little bit of a CT feather in your cap just kind of getting to that space.
Yeah, for sure. There was a lot of pressure going into that elimination round, and I was sitting there for a lot of the heat. I knew I only needed like a 6 at the end, and I was stoked. I put that one together and got the score and got to have a heat against the world number one, so that was pretty good. I was kind of going into that heat not so worried about the outcome. I kind of just wanted to surf and show my surfing, so I was a little frustrated I couldn't get a few more opportunities, but yeah, I just got to take it as a learning experience and come back better next time, I think.
Well, speaking of learning experiences, you've had quite the 2023 already. You started the year, you traveled to California, and you took out the Sambazon World Junior Championships in pretty solid surf for Seaside Reef. What was it like coming to Southern California at that time of year and not only surfing against, but besting against the best junior surfers on the planet?
Yeah, so I actually got the wild card into the World Juniors as well, and I came in at like bottom seed, and I flew over there kind of expecting like grovelly surf. I had like all my epoxies and shortboards.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a shock when I got over there, and there was like pumping waves for the whole period. I don't think we got any days that weren't like below overhead. So that was fun. But yeah, it was like pretty big opportunity going up against the world's best juniors, and it was a wave that I knew like suited my surfing. So I just took it like keep my heat and tried to put some good scores together. And then next thing I was in the final up against the local boy, and yeah, I was just stoked I put it together and came away the winner. It was probably one of the best days of my life.
Yeah, and I mean it is the undisputed sort of the most prestigious junior event on the planet. It's been running since 1998, and past world junior champions include the likes of Andy Irons, Joel Parkinson, Jesse Miley Dyer, Jordy Smith, Isabella Nichols, Ethan Ewing, like all surfers who have gone on and made huge inroads into surfing. So is that on your mind when you're competing in that event, or are you just kind of focused heat by heat? Because now that you are a world junior champion yourself, you're part of this really prestigious class, and that event is, whether it's the industry or the media or the fans or just your fellow surfers, is seen as kind of a benchmark for future greatness in surfing.
Yeah, but I definitely saw WSL's post with all of the past champions before the event started, and I was like, well, that's like pretty crazy list of like some of the best surfers from like last however many years. And then as I went into the event, I was definitely just heat by heat what I needed to do to make that heat and get myself in the best position to win. And then like looking back on it after I won, I was like, it's a pretty big privilege to have my name up against all those guys and girls. So yeah, I'm stoked.
It's a huge privilege. And then, additionally, and this has sort of been the real tactical benefit of winning that event since it began, is that, before the Challenger Series, you got priority seeding into the 6 stars and the prime events. And now you get a seed directly into the Challenger Series. And for young surfers like yourself, a lot of kind of the analysts and pundits say that can shave off several years of your years of trying to get onto the CT, right? Because you're not doing the QS thing. You've vaulted into this higher level of qualifying on the Challenger Series, and you have the opportunity to really make it to the CT pretty early on because of that.
Yeah, so going into last year, like my goal was to make the Challenger Series for this year, and then when I got the opportunity to compete in the World Juniors, that was like definitely on my mind. I really wanted that spot for the Challenger Series, and I actually ended up qualifying through the regional QS anyway, so I got a double qualification, but it took so much pressure off knowing that I just had that spot in the Challenger Series going into the QS leg. But yeah, it was really good to know, and it's really good opportunity to be like 18 years old and on the Challenger Series for a potential spot on the CT for next year.
If you got 2 spots, we should let you surf twice. We just put like a mustache on you for your second
year.
Like, the first one didn't go that well. I get another run at it.
Yeah. If I have a shock in my first heat, I get another chance, I reckon.
There you go. You have this collection of supporters right now with Hurley and Red Bull and Channel Islands and a number of others. Some of these brands you've been working with for several years, specifically talking about Channel Islands, they, talking to Brent Power and Britt Merrick over the last couple of years, they've admitted that they are in this rebuilding phase for their program. If you flash back 10 or 15 years ago, they've got, Lisa Anderson, Sofia Milanovic, they've got Dane, Bobby, Taylor, Kelly, Rob, like this massive team. And, over the last 5 or 10 years, some of those surfers have gone to different programs. Some of them have gone on to other things after competition surfing. And they've been very focused on rebuilding this program. And, they currently have the #1 surfer on the men's side in Zhao Xianka and have been investing in sort of new talent. It must feel pretty special to be a part of that program. I'm curious as to how long you've been working with them and how that relationship came about.
Yeah, so I'm pretty privileged to be part of the Channel Islands team. Like, I've been with them since I was about 13 years old, I think. I remember, like, Brent used to just work in Australia and he signed me up and I got, like, a bunch of, like, 4.7s and 4.8s. So we're tiny and, yeah, now my board's, like, 5.9. So I've been with them for ages, and the team's definitely like chopped and changed a lot along the way. But yeah, they're definitely in a really strong position at the moment. They've got the world #1 and like a really good, strong team in Australia with all upcoming QS and Challenger Series guys. So yeah, they're definitely in a good spot for the future, and their board's always really good. So I'm just stoked to ride them.
What's your go-to kind of contest model that you work on with them?
So since I joined, my go-to has always been the Fever, like Brad Fever Epoxy, Fever Squash, Fever Round Tail, and then more recently I've been riding the CI Pro a lot. It's just like really good and steep, high performance waves. So I'll say for the Snapper event I'll be on a CI Pro.
It's been a fun topic of conversation this year on the championship tour. We launched the Vissla CT Shaper rankings, where we're ranking all the board builders based off the performances of their team riders, and we're counting, only results quarterfinals or better. So it's a little bit like F1. It's not a participation trophy, and it's been a lot of fun all season. The Shapers, I send out like a little note after each event with the rankings update and like who did what, and I blind copy all the Shapers, so it's not this mass email thing, but I get like a dozen different notes back and forth about like, oh my God, like what about this and what about that. And so it's been very cool to see that get animated. And I mean, the board builders across the tour are some of the most influential and hardworking people there are. And I mean, they really are instrumental in the performances of the team riders at the top level.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I actually haven't seen that list, so it'd be good to look back and see all the event winners for each board brand. But yeah, there's like a lot of dedication on the Shapers working with all the surfers. They're like constantly trying to improve their equipment to get the best results for their team. And yeah, they put a lot of hard work in. So I'm stoked to work with Channel Islands. They've got an amazing team like Brit over in the States and a good team back here in Oz. So yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, and the other thing we've seen, recently on tour is just, and this is something that a lot of the surfers who do not ride for Red Bull comment on with a bit of envy, is just how much support those athletes get at almost every level. I had the benefit of heading out to Austria earlier in this year for a work trip, and it's just so impressive to see their setup out there and how they treat their global team of athletes and what they really do to invest in bespoke training programs for their athletes, regardless of their sport. And, you look at someone like a Jack Robinson and what he gets out of it, or a Griffin Colapinto, Carissa Moore. How has it been? I think that's sort of a more recent partnership with you. How has it been for you as a professional athlete working with that program?
Yeah, I joined with Red Bull when I was 16, so like a couple of years ago now. But they definitely invest in their athletes for the long term and try to do everything they can to increase their performance and get them to perform at their best at the highest level. So it's pretty crazy to see the facilities they have, like the Athlete Performance Center over in LA and over in Austria, and they always try and support you at all of your events with coaches and physios. So yeah, they're definitely a really helpful brand to be with, and they just want to do everything they can to get you to perform at your highest level. So yeah, I'm privileged to be a part of the Red Bull team, especially with like some of the guys that are on the team now with Jack Bravo, Griffin and Carissa and Idolo and all those guys. It's pretty sick.
Yeah. You mentioned working with coaches. Do you work with a specific coach on tour at the moment?
Yeah, I work with Luke Egan. He just lives around the corner from me in Cronulla, so I do a lot of coaching with him at home, and he was over in WA for my first CT event. So yeah, he was guiding me through that experience and helped me get down a couple of heats. And he's also coming up here for the Challenge Series, so he'll be up here in a day or two, and we'll get some training done and hopefully get a good result at this event.
For sure. And Luke is obviously an icon in the sport, and probably someone, as you mentioned earlier, that when you start packing on some more muscle as you grow into adulthood, is someone who's going to be able to help you with that, because renowned power surfer in his time and to this day still rips the bag out of it.
Yeah, Luke is still ripping so hard. Like, I go for a surf with him and he's still surfing so good. But yeah, he's definitely an icon of the sport, and he has so much knowledge from being on the tour for so many years, and he always just has a really calming approach. So yeah, he's a good guy to have in my corner for sure.
Very cool. We're going to take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to dive into where you come from. We'll be right back. All right. So Jarvis, you mentioned that you are from Cronulla. Are you born and raised there?
Yeah, I've lived in Cronulla my whole life. I've actually lived in the same house my whole life too. I live at this little wave called Sand Shoes. It's like a right and left reef break, so I spend a lot of time down there, and that's kind of where I learned to surf.
Very cool. And I've had the good fortune of talking to a few folks from Cronulla, but I always ask them the same question because I've had the fortune of being there before, but it's such a unique place. For listeners who have never been to Cronulla, how would you describe it to someone?
Cronulla is just like a cool little surf town. It's getting a little bit more busy now. It's on the south side of Sydney, and it's full of like a variety of waves. There's a long beach break, and then there's a few more famous slabs such as like Shark Island and Cape Solander. So I think it's like a really good area to grow up, especially for me surfing. Like I get experience in like heavy water waves, and then also a lot of beach breaks and slabs and barrels. So yeah, I love Cronulla.
And for a place that has produced so many good surfers, you mentioned Luke Egan, but, you have CT surfers like Connor O'Leary, world champ Mark Occhilupo, Andy King, Blake Johnston, like so many good surfers that come out of there. But as far as sort of Sydney suburbs go, you mentioned it's on the south side. It's a little bit removed from that, Manly, Narrabeen, Whale Beach, Northern Beaches kind of zone. And so sometimes it goes a little bit under the radar. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, for sure. Like it's kind of tucked away from the city a bit, and it's kind of like last bit of Sydney. There's still a lot of like natural land and like those slabs and stuff where you feel like you're definitely not in the middle of Sydney. And yeah, as you said, it's produced so many good surfers like Occy and Connor O'Leary and Kirk Flinoff and Blake Johnson and Andy King and Richard Doug Marsh, and yeah, definitely a lot of goofy footers have come out of Cronulla, which is pretty funny. But yeah, it's a sick little town.
Yeah, what was home life like? What did mom and dad do? Did you have siblings? What was it like growing up?
Yeah, so I have an older brother and sister, and then dad works for the airline and mum just worked from home. So dad was always taking us down to the beach, and we were having beach days as a family, and dad would all take us surfing. And I think just being the youngest, my older brother was a pretty good surfer, and I was always just trying to keep up with him. So yeah, and then I just loved it ever since, and slowly progressed up to my way in the slabs and got better out there, and yeah, just been surfing a lot of hours since.
Now, in addition to surfing, when you're a little kid, are you doing anything else? Rugby, cricket, music? Are there any other kind of interests that are catching your eye?
I played soccer for probably like 5 years or something until I was like 12 maybe, but then after that I was like, we have a lot of boardriders clubs in Australia. I'm not sure if it's as big over in the States, but I'd always be doing boardriders on the weekend, and I'd have to try and go to soccer, and I was like trying to juggle the two, so I just got over it and quit soccer and just went full-time surfing. But yeah, it was always fun growing up. Like there's a lot of kids that I grew up that I could surf with, and we do boardriders events, and yeah, it was always fun.
Yeah, the board riders, speaking personally, and I think I probably speak for the surfing communities in the US, the board riders clubs that you have in Australia, we are envious of them. And there are a bunch of clubs sparking up, up and down the coastline here, and some club contests. It is a really, really, I guess my mom's Australian, so I kind of get the best of both worlds sometimes, but like it is a really positive thing for a community. And I've got little kids now too. They're 9, and it's so nice to have a board riders club to patch your family into, whether they turn out to be world champions or CT surfers or not. It's a good space to be in because everyone at the beach and people look out for each other. And then you kind of have this support mechanism of, we're competing as much as we can, we're competing every weekend and we're getting these reps in. And I think that's something we were talking about it on the last podcast with Mitch Salazar that's sorely missing in America and could be one of the reasons why we're not seeing as many kind of world title contenders compared to Brazil and Australia. Is we don't have that kind of built-in domestic series that's as strong over here. How do you kind of feel about that?
Yeah, I think the board riders is definitely like a huge part of my life growing up. Like it just creates a good little surf community where everyone just supports each other, and you have like the young guys coming through, then like the older guys looking after him and always supporting. But yeah, it's pretty sick to see all the little board riders clubs around Australia all have like their young guns and like a few pro surfers. So definitely creates a good surf community and like breeds good surfers. But it's pretty funny in Cronulla. We have like 8 board riders clubs along one stretch of beach, and they're all like their own little surf community. But yeah, it's pretty
Right. Yeah,
funny.
sure. Well, medieval times, Game of Thrones things. Everyone's got
Yeah,
their
exactly.
sigil going on. Well, how were
Yeah.
you as a competitor early on? Like, is it something that you were good at right away, or was it something that you kind of grew into?
I definitely wasn't good at competing right away. I was always like good at free surfing. Like I'd have fun and like do my best surfing free surfs, but it's kind of something that I've just learned and grown. Like I did all the junior comps around Australia growing up and worked my way into the pro juniors and QSs. Like I started doing the QSs like fairly young, and I think that gave me like good experience against smart surfers, but I've definitely
Mm.
still got a lot to learn. I'm always making mistakes in heat, so I just need to keep learning and get better.
Was there a moment for you? I mean, it's silly to say because you're so young, but you've had so much success, which is why I asked. Was there a moment for you where you thought, I, you know, I could be a pro surfer. Like this is what I want to do. It's what I think I can do. So I'm going to go for it. Or was it just something for you that kind of just gradually came to be a thing?
I think it kind of just gradually came to be a thing. Like there was no specific moment. Like I just made my way up through the junior events and obviously had some success with comps, and then more like recently, like I signed with Red Bull, and then I
Mm.
started doing a lot more of the QS events, and then like at the end of last year I won my first QS event, and then straight after that went on to win the World Juniors. So it's all like kind of becoming a reality, and now I'm on the Challenge Series. But yeah, it was definitely just a gradual thing, and definitely my goal. Like I really want to be on the CP, so hopefully I can get a few good results in the Challenger, and if not, just keep chipping away at it and learning.
Who were some of your contemporaries growing up, just that you competed against on the junior series? And I'm just curious if there are any kind of names where you went, oh, this person, geez, they used to win everything, or they still do win everything, or whatever it was.
I don't really have like a specific rival, but there's like a bunch of Aussie kids like Joel Vaughan and Lennox Smith and Marlon Harrison, KB Clements and Lennox Chell and like all those guys. Like that was a pretty big group of talent in Australia. So all the junior events are pretty tough. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's a lot of like good surfers coming to Australia.
Had a couple conversations with other Australian surfers like, Ryan Callanan and Julian Wilson, and we talked about this phenomenon over the last 5, 10, maybe 15 years um, in Australia, where you were seeing a lot of young Australian talent, regardless of where they're from, start to move towards the Gold Coast. There's a lot of industry there. There's a lot of support. The waves are really competitive. And here in America, it happens similarly where, if there's a young, talented surfer, odds are they're moving to San Clemente and surfing lowers every day. And, both Ryan and Julian were saying, yeah, that's fine. Obviously, you want to be around people that are pushing your own surfing, but you do kind of lose something unique if you're not surfing where you grew up from. I'm curious to get your take on that and whether you've been even thought about potentially moving somewhere like the Gold Coast to further your career.
Yeah, so the Gold Coast is definitely like the hub of surfing in Australia, like really similar to San Clemente in the States. But yeah, there's always cameras up here, filmers, like all of the industry is up here. And Surfing Australia actually have a high performance centre up here, which has like a huge gym, physio, all the coaches like Bottle and Clancy. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of advantages to live up here, and you get practice on the points. So definitely can help your career. I love being at home and kind of like getting away from that for a little bit because it can get so hectic up here. But I've seen like a lot of pro surfers who have made the move up the Gold Coast. Like I think Jack Robertson moved up here more recently and can definitely like accelerate your career and give you opportunities. So it could be like potential for it in the future, but we'll just see where it goes. Like I'm pretty happy at home at the moment, and I think I'm just traveling so much it doesn't really matter. But yeah, the Gold Coast is like the central of surfing in Australia.
You know, for decades, really, like professional surfers have had, you know, two, I'll put kind of big wave surfing off to the side for a second, but, you know, kind of two primary avenues of being a professional surfer. It was competitive surfing or free surfing. And for years, it sort of oscillated between, and then you'd have, you know, free surfers who would try contests and contest surfers who would turn into free surfers and vice versa. And then, you know, probably 15 years ago, we saw something happen on tour where when I started was about 18 years ago. And, you know, we had the Wayne Bartholomew tagline. It was world's best surfers, world's best waves. It wasn't always the world's best surfing on the championship tour because you'd have these really great surfers that were maybe surfing a bit safe or surfing conservatively to get through heats. And then they'd also be surfing in videos and kind of going for it. And then something interesting happened, you know, 15 years ago where the interpretation of the criteria changed by the judging panel and they were rewarding different kinds of surfing. And now we're seeing something on the championship tour where the best surfers on the planet are actually surfing their very, very best in contests. And it's awesome to see. And that is absolutely what we want to be doing. But, you know, as a young guy yourself, I'm curious to get your take on how you balance, you know, radical surfing in contests versus letting loose in free surfing.
Yeah, so competition surfing and free surfing is definitely like completely different things, and it's like pretty crazy to see the guys in the championship team doing what they do in the 30-minute window. But yeah, I think when myself going into heats, like I know the maneuvers that I can make in a heat, and if the opportunity presents itself, always like the guy to kind of go for it. Like if I see a big air section, I'm not going to just like safe it and like miss the opportunity and end up losing the heat. I'd rather go for it and not make it than safe surf. But yeah, I think it's just finding that happy medium of waiting for the right waves and then hunting for those bigger scores, trying like more radical stuff under priority. And yeah, I'm obviously always learning in competition, but I love trying to put down some like big airs and stuff in heats. It's always way more fun and exciting. So yeah, it's pretty sick to watch the progression on the tour the last few years and see how good the guys have gotten and their performances in their heats.
For sure. And I guess to use your point, nowadays, when there's a big section on tour, if you decide not to hit it and go for it, odds are your opponent is going to do it, right? Even at the Challenger Series level now. And that's a cool thing for competitive surfing because we obviously want to see the best surfing possible. But I appreciate that answer because I'm curious to see how you kind of approach that stuff. And then, I mean, related to that free surfing question, you know, in the past, there's been avenues with filmmakers like, you know, Jack McCoy, Justin Gain, you know, Taylor Steele, Kai Neville, Logan Doolian, you know, filmmakers like that go, cool. Well, you know, whether you compete or not, we like the way you surf. We're going to put you in this film. Is there anyone like that on your radar where you're like, yeah, in addition to doing competition and trying to get to the championship tour, I also want to put out a good film part with this filmmaker?
Yeah, I have a guy from home who's only like a year or two older than me, and whenever there's fun waves around, I just hit him up to go shoot, and it's always hard to find the time because I'm traveling so much, but I'm always looking to try to put out like high quality content of like some really good surfing. So it's just trying to find a little window to get a swell when there's no competitions. But yeah, it's definitely one of my goals in the future to release a little short film or something for sure.
I love it. We're going to take one more break to get a word in from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, so bringing it back to the Challenger Series, you know, the Boost Mobile Gold Coast Pro presented by GWM. will likely have started by the time this airs. You know, you've got your quiver of Channel Islands, you got your Fevers and your CI Pros. With respect to the wave at Snapper Rocks, you have this long, often perfect, and the sand is very good at the moment, you know, right-hand point break. What kind of parts of your surfing do you try to emphasize at a venue like that when you're competing?
I've always like wanted to compete in the Snapper Rocks Pro. Like it used to be on the championship tour, and I'd go up there. It was like one of my favourite events. I'm just pretty pumped to be in the event and get to surf Snapper without 60,000 people out there. But yeah, I think just sticking to my guns, and like I grew up on a right little reef break, so I actually enjoyed back end surfing a lot. So just trying to get those vertical critical turns, and then if the opportunity presents itself, go into the air for sure, because that's going to be a point of difference at Snapper. But yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Like hopefully we get some swell for the event, and the bank's really fun at the moment. So yeah, I can't wait for it.
And looking ahead to the remainder of the 2023 WSL Challenger Series schedule, we have the GWM Sydney Surf Pro presented by Bonsoy. That's going to be at Narrabeen. Then the Bolito Pro presented by O'Neill. That's in South Africa. The US Open of Surfing presented by Pacifico in Huntington Beach. The EDP Visla Pro Ericeira presented by Estrella Galicia. That's out in Portugal. And then the final event is the Corona Saquarema Pro in Brazil. Do you have experience at all those venues, or are there any that you haven't been to yet?
So I've had a lot of practice at Snapper, obviously, and Narrabeen is only an hour drive from my house, so I've had good practice out there, and it's a really fun wave. I'm stoked they moved it there instead of Manly, so I'm looking forward to that one for sure. And the only other one I've had practice out is Huntington, and the other events are new to me, so hopefully I can just get a good little Aussie crew together for those trips and get some reps in before the comp. And yeah, I'm looking forward to those locations. Like, should be fun, and I think it's suited to my surfing, so yeah, I'm really excited for it.
I mean, that is kind of one of the big benefits of operating in the surfing world, right? Like whether you're a surfer or a staff member or whatever, it's like you run away and join the circus. So you do get to go to these new places, which is pretty fun. And I mean, I guess it is a lie to be like, well, as like a staff member, we don't have to perform. Of course you have to perform, you lose your job, but we don't have to perform in a heat like you do. So I guess as a young person traveling the world, do you, when you're going to new places, are you like, this is great, I'm in a new place, I'm going to try to take it in as much as I can? Or are you, and this would be understandable if you were, like primarily focused on like, I just have to like be like narrowly focused on competing at this spot?
I kind of try to find the happy medium between both. Like, I definitely try to prioritize my event and get everything that I need to get done before the event starts and all my prep that I need for my heats. But I definitely don't want to go to a place and be like, oh, all I saw was the contest site. So I like to like, enjoy it and like go have some fun and just enjoy the area that I'm in and explore what's around. So yeah, I try to find like the middle of both of those two. But yeah, I definitely focused on the event if I'm going there for an event.
Makes sense. You know, we talked a little bit already about just the physical maturation that a lot of surfers, including yourself, go through, you know, in your latter teen years and your early 20s. You're working with Luke Egan as a coach. You've got the advantage of the Red Bull high performance team behind you. In the last year or two, have you changed anything specifically when it comes to diet or training, or has it been more of the same in terms of what you've been doing for the last few years?
In terms of surf coaching, I've like kind of kept it the same, just obviously trying to improve, focus on separate little goals each session. And then I've definitely stepped up my strength training. Like, I probably started in the gym a couple of years ago and like tried to step it up to more sessions per week to get stronger and more athletic. And then in terms of diet, I'm not too strict on my diet. I try healthy as best I can, but yeah, I don't follow a specific meal plan or anything.
You're a young guy. You don't have to worry about that for a few years. You
Yeah,
just
exactly.
eat whatever pizza for breakfast and whatever. Yeah. Do
Yeah,
you,
and
I mean, then yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
then I'll burn 10,000 calories out snapper.
That's right. That's right. I saw someone posted something of Sierra Kerr's mom was giving her a lift back up the beach on the Murph bike the other day, and I'm like, that's cool. That's pretty good.
I actually ran into Nikki the other day, and she was like, "Oh, do you want to lift on the bike?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, please." It was like my 5th lap of running around. I definitely need that break.
She should put a tip jar on the handles or something.
Yeah, I know. $5 a lift
make some
should
money.
go pretty good, I reckon.
Well, back to the gym thing, you know, like people are different. Like some people really love it, and some people are like, "Look, I do it because it makes me surf better. If I didn't have to, I wouldn't, but that's okay." How do you like going into the gym and training? Because obviously it wasn't something that young surfers did forever. It's a pretty recent phenomenon in professional surfing.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy going to the gym and training. Like, I always feel good after the session, and it lets me like put a schedule in my day. Like, oh, I'm going to the gym and I'm going to surf, and it just gets me feeling way better when I'm in the surf. I feel stronger and like more powerful and more paddle power and strength in my turns. And the other big thing is just like preventing injuries. Like, there's nothing worse than having an injury and watching all the stuff you're missing out of. So yeah, actually, I enjoy the gym. Yeah,
makes a ton of sense. And I mean, we did touch on this a little bit already, but it's something that's been coming up all year long. And we just had the mid-season relegation following Margaret River, and you know, aside from Kelly, who received the wild card, Griffin Colapinto is the only male American on tour. Obviously, there's the Hawaiians, but we don't consider them Americans. They're their own sovereign surfing nation, as they should be. But it's been really interesting, and I mean, it goes in phases and cycles. And you know, we've seen Brazil be so dominant the last few years on the men's championship tour. I think we did a run of data that said they won 28 out of the 50 championship tour events from 2017 to 2022. So they're just so dominant. They have so many surfers that can not only perform but win championship tour events. And like we've said in this podcast, in the last year or two, we've seen this new generation of young Australians come in with Jack Robinson and Ethan Ewing and Ryan Callanan really lift their game up to perform and compete and win events. And you and your contemporaries are probably backfilling that group in a way. And do you see yourself as part of kind of this Australian contingent that's taking on the world, or do you feel more like you're just kind of on your own?
Yeah, I definitely I think that's the difference why the Aussies are having so much success now compared to like the last few years, is because like we've all come together as like a team and we're all just happy for each other's success, and it's like so good to see that the Aussie guys doing really well on tour, and that, yeah, as you said, like it's definitely filtered through. We have a really good team of surfers on the Challenger Series, and it filters right down to the regional QS and junior events. So yeah, hopefully more Aussies can qualify for next year, and yeah, the Aussies keep doing well on tour, and yeah, it's been really good the last couple of years seeing the Aussie guys get back to the top.
If you had to pick one surfer on the championship tour from a performance standpoint that you go, I never miss their heat, I always want to watch them surf, who would it be?
Honestly, can't really pick one, but I love watching Ethan Ewing and John and Gabriel Medina. They're probably and Felipe. They're probably like my top few favourite heats to watch. But the surfers are so good on there these days. Like, I pretty much just watch all the heats that I can in my spare time.
Last question before we get to the questions from the Instagram community. For listeners of the show and people that are going to get to watch you compete on the WSL Challenger Series this season, you know, why should people get behind Jarvis Earle and support you and cheer for you?
I don't really know, but yeah, I always love the support. It's really good. So yeah, if you want to get behind me, I love having support, and I'll just be out there doing my best, trying to make some heats, and hopefully get a few good results this season. And it'd be good to potentially qualify for next year. So yeah.
All right. Well, we did put out a feeler for questions from the Instagram community who follow us at the Lineup Pod. We appreciate everyone sending in questions. We got a lot for you, Jarvis, but we've whittled it down to 3. The first question is from Harry Bramich, who asks, aside from being in the water, what is the best thing you can do out of the water for your surfing?
Definitely just work in the gym, like whether it's stretching or like rolling out with a foam roller or like doing some weights, just whatever little niggles and stuff that you have, you can definitely get them out in the gym or just overall improve your performance by following a specific training program for surfing. So yeah, definitely training in the gym.
Next question is from Joel Sinton, who asks, did you ever think about doing a trade?
I honestly never wanted to do a trade. Like, wasn't at school much because I was traveling so much, but I finished, I don't know what you guys call it in America, but I finished year 12 and did my HSC and everything. So if I wasn't following the surfing path, I probably would have done the degree at university. I'm not quite sure yet because I was always so set on surfing. But yeah, I never really thought about a trade. I was always just surfing, surfing or surfing.
That's a good answer. And the last question we picked from the Instagram community was from Levitahi1, who asks, why does Cronulla produce so many good goofy-footed pros? We touched about this a little bit, but yeah, Mark Akalupo, Kirk Flintoff, Jim Banks, Gary Green, Connor O'Leary, Craig Naylor, Luke Egan. So what's your take on why so many good goofy footers come out of Cronulla?
Yeah, I can't really put a pin on why they're goofy footers, but Cronulla just has a really good variety of waves, so you just get experience in all different types of waves. It breeds really good surfers, and there's a lot of fun left slab, so maybe everyone just wants to be a goofy foot there, but I can't really tell why besides the variety of waves and the area of good surfers.
Love it. Well, thanks to everyone who wrote in questions at the Lineup Pod. It is now time for our final segment. It is time for the lightning round. So these are 10 questions for you to answer as quickly as you can.
Okay.
If you could only have one board setup for the rest of your life, a single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad bonzer, or finless, which would you choose?
I would just choose the trusty thruster, I reckon.
Coffee or tea?
I don't drink either, but I'm going to say coffee because I might like it one day.
That's a good answer. Burrito or pizza?
Burrito.
Last book you read?
I have not read a book in about 10 years, I don't reckon.
This is a while ago. Best surf film ever?
My favorite is probably View from Building.
Good one. What is one wave you never have to go back to?
Never have to go back to. Middleton Beach in South Australia.
Why is that?
It's the worst beach ever. And I never want to go back there.
Fair enough. If you only get to surf one wave for the rest of your life?
Macaronis in the Montales.
That's a great one. Best person to share a lineup with?
Probably just my mates from home.
Worst person to share a lineup with?
Probably any of the people out snap for the last few days are pretty hard to share the lineup with. They're always on your inside.
Good answer. Last one. Finish this sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by
Winning the Gold Coast Pro at the Challenger Series.
I love it. Jarvis Earle, thank you so much for coming on the lineup. Congratulations on your World Junior title and competing against the CT in Western Australia. And good luck in the Boost Mobile Gold Coast Pro Challenger Series event, which will be starting very soon if it hasn't already, man. It's been awesome to watch you surf and great talking to you.
Yeah, cheers, Dave. Thanks for having me on the podcast. It was good to talk about surfing. Yeah, and hope all the listeners enjoyed.